Eileen Pitkeathly, and I served at Digby in 1941 to 1943.
And whilst you're there, obviously you served as a plotter within the
Yes.
operations room. What we're going to talk about, Eileen, is that as well as your time at Digby, we'd like to really discuss your career that you had in the RAF during those war years. And I'd like to begin really, if we could start discussing something about your basic training. You know, how did that all formulate, and have you got any recollections of your basic training, etc.?
Yeah. Well, do you want to know why I went into the war?
Yeah.
Well, my boyfriend was going to volunteer to be a pilot, and he did training in England. Then he was sent to Canada, and I was at Birmingham Art College at the time, and he said to me, "You won't be called up because you're a student." But the minute he'd gone, I volunteered for the WAF, and I had to go to Aston in Birmingham to sign on, and that was where I had to go to before I was sent to Bridgnorth. Yes.
So you arrived at Bridgnorth then, and that's where you began your basic training, is that right?
No, we were there just to sort us out, I think.
All right.
And I had a great shock because I met all sorts of people that I would never have met before. I shouldn't say it, but they're from Newcastle and places like that I'd never met those sort of people before. So it was quite an eye-opener. So after that, I think we were there about 2 nights, really. Then they sent us to Morecambe to do really basic drill and so sort of inoculations and things like that. And I think we must have been there for about a month, I would think. 4 weeks, I would think, yes.
Yeah. How old were you when you joined up?
Pardon?
How old were you when you joined up?
21.
So that was about the average age, really, of people going into
Yes,
the
that's
forces
right,
of those days,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. So obviously, not many happy recollections then of your basic training, or?
Well, at Morecambe, yes.
Oh.
Yes, we enjoyed that because we were billeted on the promenade in what had been boarding houses, and we were supposed to be in at a certain time at night, and we didn't. A group of us weren't. We went to a dance, and we were late coming in, and we were supposed to go into the basement to get into the house, and that was locked. So I said, right, we'll go through the front door. So we went through the front door, we were climbing the stairs, and the landlady came out and absolutely was furious with us, you know, and said she would report us. But she didn't in the end.
Great. So when you finished the basic training then, is that when you decided to be a plotter? Or?
No, I didn't know what I was going to be, because I joined up as clerk special duties, and I didn't know what it was. I thought, well, I can do that, clerk special duties. And I didn't know what it was. And so when we'd finished basic training, they sent us to Leighton Buzzard.
Oh, right.
Yes. And there I found out that was what it was going to be. I didn't know until I got to Leighton Buzzard. And we were billeted in the workhouse, which was absolutely horrendous, you know, awful. So we must have been there for about 4 weeks, I should think, and there was a huge room with this great big map of the British Isles, and it was all made into places all over England where the fighter stations were, you see. And so we started off by having to, there's a graph on top of the British Isles map, and we had to sort of start pinpointing things on the graph to see if we were quick enough. Apparently I was, and so after this 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I can't quite remember how long, we were told that we could choose which station we wanted to go to. And I thought, well, right, I think I'll choose the easiest one to come home in case my boyfriend comes home from Canada and I want to see him. And all my parents lived, you see, in Birmingham. So I chose Digby. But a lot of them chose the Isle of Man.
Right.
Anyway, I chose Digby, and we were told to pack our things onto these great big kit bags. That's what I'm trying to say. Big kit bags and a case you were allowed, and a gas mask. And we had to go through London. They took us to London to get on a train. And of course I didn't know where Digby was really, I just saw it on the map. And so the train took us to Lincoln Station, and then there was a van that picked us up. I think there must have been about 4 or 5 of us there then, and because I'd never been to East Anglia before, so I couldn't believe it. The sky, and it was July, and all the wheat fields and poppies were out. I'd never seen anything like it. So they took us to Digby and told us to get out of this van. We just got out of the van, and there was an air raid warning, and the Germans were coming over to bomb Digby, you see. So we had to get down into the shelters. And so we'd no idea where we were going to stay or anything like it. So eventually a little van came, and we got into this little van, and we thought, where are we going? Because we weren't going to be on the station at all. So they took us down to this wonderful place called Blankney Hall. So this was amazing, absolutely amazing, because it was a beautiful place, wonderful gardens, and we were put inside, and we had 4 to a bedroom, and it was really an old bedroom, but wonderful furniture, great big wardrobes and things, and of course a bathroom and loo that you went up steps to it, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it was a wonderful place to be, to begin with, yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so few recollections of Blankney Hall, obviously, because it's been burnt down now. And,
yes.
So there's very few stories about actually what went on there, you know.
Well, I can't remember exactly the first day or anything like it, but I can remember some of the people there that were interesting. There was a lady there who apparently had brought her pony and trap. She must have come from a very well
healed
family, you see. She bought a pony and trap, and she would give us lifts into Lincoln on this pony and this trap, you see. And she'd have been allowed to do all this. And also there was Betty Clements, who was a famous tennis player at the Priory in Birmingham, and she was sewing her wedding dress in between times, you know, of working, because her husband was at Waddington, and she used to walk, he was group captain, and she used to walk through a golf course at Blankney to meet him halfway, you see. And so that was very interesting people. Yes.
Yeah. And the golf course is still there, of course.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes. And before we start talking about the actual things, I went to a little church at Metheringham, a Methodist church, and I met there a couple who lived in Blankney, and their daughter, who was at school in Lincoln. And so they gave me hospitality, and they said, any time you're off duty and want to sleep quietly, come and sleep, you see. So they were very kind, they were. Mr. and Mrs. Walker then. And they said, would your parents like to come for a holiday? And I said, I'm sure they would. And so my parents came up for a holiday there. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. So obviously then you settled down into life at Blankney Hall off duty.
Yes.
And apparently there was a lot of dances and that at the hell there, wasn't there?
Well, we were such a long way from the camp, you see. The only way of getting to the camp was to walk. There was no transport. So you know how far it is.
Walked it, yes. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Yes. So we really went into Lincoln, and there weren't any buses or anything. We had to hitchhike. So I think I hitchhiked in everything, even a hearse I hitchhiked in. So that's what we had to do when we were off duty. to get into Lincoln was to hitchhike, and in the evening there would be a sort of transport come to take people back to Digby, but we would get onto that and they'd drop us at Blankney, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, great. So obviously then we'll start talking about going on to what you did at work, etc. So I take it then that they used to ferry you every day up to Digby. And,
No,
you didn't go to Digby. You worked.
not at
you worked
all.
the
We
time
just
at Blankney.
stayed
Yeah,
there because we were in the ballroom
yeah,
that had been made
Okay,
into the ops room.
yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
How recently, before you arrived, had they moved the ops room out of Digby down to the hall?
Well, I don't know. Was there ever an ops room at Digby?
Yes.
Oh yes, yeah, 1940.
Well, it was quite a big one because the table, because it's much bigger than the one that you've got at Digby now. Yes.
We've got a picture in the museum which you saw of down at the hall, of course,
Yes.
with the table there,
Yeah.
which was quite large. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
So that table was the same one, obviously, that you worked on, because that picture was taken in 1943.
Yeah.
So nothing much had changed in that picture then. Was
No.
that roughly it? Yeah.
No.
Okay. Right. Well, should we start talking then about some of the ops side of it then, or?
Can I go back to Leighton Buzzard for a minute?
Yes.
You were there for about 3 or 4 weeks for, I suppose, what we call now your phase 2 training or your specialist training for the job you were
That's
going
right.
to do.
Yes. Yes.
Was it just other clerks specialist duties?
Yes.
People that were there?
Yes.
And were they all going to other fighter?
Yes. Yes. Other fighter stations, but we were allowed to choose, which was
Mhm.
very good, really. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Did they teach you anything else apart from plotting on the big map?
No. No,
It
not
was-
really.
It was
No.
really just aptitude.
That's
so
right.
you could do it.
Aptitude to see if we could
Okay.
do it. Yes.
So once you got to through Digby to Blankney, how were you trained to do the job that you did once you arrived?
Well, we just did it. It was the same as we'd been trained in Leighton Buzzard, you see.
Mhm.
We just did it. But of course we'd got live plots coming through from the DF stations.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say we're going to talk about that anyway, about because that's the most interesting aspect really, is how the operations worked.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there are several blanks in our knowledge of what went on with regards to these operations, and that was one of them. If you'd just like to talk us through maybe a normal day, but involving, say, air activity or enemy air activity, if you can remember. So that
Yes.
might be quite interesting from the start to you arrived, how many people were on the shift, hours that you worked, etc.
I can't remember how many people.
Was it about a dozen or so? Or?
But yes, there'd be about six, 7 of us round the table, I would think. There was a corporal who prayed around the table. I can remember this one. Pam, her name was, and she just wore a shirt with the sleeves rolled up, not a jacket, and she always had a pink handkerchief in her pocket, and she always had her eyes on the officers round about, you see. Very pretty corporal, yes. Very nice, yes, she was. Except that she used to play, she was in a room next to me, and when we went off duty, she used to play Jealousy on her radio, the tune Jealousy, and he drove us mad because we wanted to go to sleep, you see, after duty, and there she was doing this, yes. Right, you want to ask me some more about the...
Yeah, I mean, what some of the questions we were looking at was how long were your shifts, for example? So did you start in the morning or did you work how many hours? Or?
Well, we started in the morning, yes, and we would work through till, I don't know, lunchtime, I suppose, yes, and then probably another one.
Another shift in the afternoon?
Yes, and then we'd have time off.
Right.
Yeah.
How often would you have a day off or a 48 pass?
48 past. Well,